Hi, I'm Dr. Sed Miles, and I study image making and archiving all across the Black Atlantic. I want to teach you how to read photographs the way that you would read a poem for what's said, what's implied, and what is deliberately withheld. Roy Rudolph DeCarava understood something that many photographers miss, that shadow isn't all about absence. Shadow can be the place where the light within Black life gets to decide what it keeps for itself. Dekarava taught me a simple truth about light and shadow. He taught me to see shadow as a natural element that can be used to develop dignity within an image. Dekarava did not begin as a photographer. He was trained as an artist, moving through painting and printmaking, and he brought that compositional intelligence into the camera. DeCarava started with an inexpensive 35 millimeter camera around 1946, using it to photograph scenes he wanted to paint. He taught himself to see photographically. He developed and printed all of his own images, learning darkroom technique and then honing his own methods to create that signature aesthetic. In 1952, he became the first African American photographer to receive a Guggenheim Fellowship. That year of support let him photograph Harlem full time, building the body of work that would become his archive of mid century Black life. The handheld 35 millimeter camera was perfect for his approach. It let him move easily through the city, responding to moments as they happened, working without flash in dim jazz clubs and cramped apartments. In 1955, DeCarava collaborated with poet Langston Hughes on The Sweet Flypaper of Life, a photo book where Hughes wrote prose inspired by DeCarava's photographs of Harlem. It's one of the first books where Black life is presented in its own beauty and rhythm. Artist, MacArthur Fellow, and New York University professor Deborah Willis writes that this was one of the only books where she saw her own life reflected back as a child. When I analyze a photograph, I look at 5 things that I'll use in every episode. Not only what's in the frame, but what the image is doing socially, politically, emotionally. I start with the frame, what the photographer chose to include and what they left out. Then I look at the light, where it lands and where it deliberately doesn't go. I also pay attention to the body of the photo. How are the subjects positioned? How do the people hold themselves? What are their gestures? The spaces between subjects. Then I read the world around the subjects as a social text, the environment. It tells us something about that moment. And finally, I ask the archive question. What is this image protecting? What is it preserving? What is it arguing for? So let's apply this to DeCarava's photographs. Here's something to notice about DeCarava's approach. While most photography tries to freeze time to stop it completely, DeCarava used his camera to slow time down instead. His shadows allow moments to breathe. Pay attention and you'll see what I mean. First, the frame. Before we talk about the subjects, look at the architecture of the image. Where are the edges doing the most work? Look at the composition. 2 boys playing in a tight urban alleyway. One fully in sunlight, seemingly exposed. The other almost swallowed by the shadow. The elevated perspective creates a sense of surveillance, like we're watching from above. But notice what DeCarava does. He doesn't clarify the shadow, he lets it stay dark. The subject in the shadow gets his own privacy, even in a public moment. And finally, we have the archive question. What does this shadow allow the subject to keep for themselves? The philosopher Edward Glissant called this opacity, the right to not be fully understood, or the right to refuse transparency. In DeCarava's work, opacity is a type of sovereignty. He's expressing that subjects don't owe the viewers everything. DeCarava was an autodidact, and early on he printed with a more conventional, high contrast look. After conversations with the photographer Homer Page, he taught himself to print more softly, in a narrower range of deep tones, a style he referred to as a luxury of dark grays, a shift that became the moral atmosphere of the rest of his work. Now let's compare DeCarava to Gordon Parks, a more well-known contemporary of his. Parks shot for Life magazine. His work powerfully uses a conventional contrast, bright highlights, true blacks, clear midtones. DeCarava refused that. He printed softer in what he called a luxury of dark grays. And as Teju Cole writes, what is dark is not empty. It is full of wise light, which, with patient seeing, can open into glories. I love this quote. "11 years later, DeCarava is at the March on Washington, and he makes this photograph. Notice what has not changed. The deep grays, the refusal of bright whites, the sense that the subject is both present and protected. But look what's different. This is a close-up. You see her face very clearly. Teju Cole also writes that even in bright sunshine, both her face and the picture give off a feeling of modulated darkness. She is underlit somehow. You can see her features, but they don't give themselves up to the viewer. Now let's apply the framework. The frame crops tightly. We are in the crowd with her. Next to her is a male figure whose face is cut off in the frame. He's closer, but also out of focus, giving the sense that his existence is another frame, limiting the spectacle of the political moment and demanding a deferent gaze. The light refuses to clarify everything. Her body language is calm but resolute, and the world is the March on Washington, one of the most photographed events in American history. And yet, this feels judiciously intimate and private. And what about the archive question? What does the shadow protect? This is another example of Glissant's opacity, the right to not be fully understood, the right to refuse transparency. In DeCarava's work, opacity represents sovereignty. The marcher does not owe the viewer everything. The shadow lets them keep something for themselves, even in this public, political moment. This is my photograph. It's called Trey, from the year 2000. Three boys pressed close together, held together by that same luxury of dark grays. When we look at DeCarava's best work, within the frame we see intimacy without performance. Look at the tonal range here. The boy on the left falls into soft focus and shadow. The center figure is fully lit. His white shirt creates the brightest note in the whole frame. The boy on the right exists in a deeper shadow, with his face partially obscured. Three figures with three different relationships to the light, all within the same narrow tonal range. I believe that this is what DeCarava taught me about black and white photography. You don't need harsh contrast to create depth, and that there's a choice in black and white photography. You can control how the viewer moves through the image by modulating focus and tone together. The shadows are tools of composition that can create order, rhythm, and an emotional atmosphere. Thank you for watching my video. This is a place to enjoy the beauty and depth of what images can reveal to us, the stories, the emotions, and the things that live between light and shadow. And it's a project to archive the Black visual tradition, to help build a community of people learning to read these images together. There's so much more to come. We'll be diving into the world of Black Atlantic photography, master photographers, community archives, an entire diaspora aesthetic that most people have never been taught to see. Each episode will read images the way we've done today, closely and carefully, looking for what's said and what's withheld. Comment below, follow along, and look forward to more images to read. Next, we're building a transatlantic conversation. DeCarava in Harlem, Seydou Keïta in Bamako, and Lázaro Roberto's Zumvi archive in Bahia, Brazil. Different geographies, shared questions. Who gets seen? Who gets to control the images? And what the archive owes to the living.